Hello and welcome to Stringer Podcast number 19. That's right, this week is number 19. If you listen to last week's episode, you probably heard me muff up the intro pretty dang bad. Why do they even keep me around? Excited because Dan Gladman is on the podcast. Dan Gladman, you might not recognize the name, but if you live in Toronto, I assure you have seen his work. He is the producer on all Raptors live games. So whether it's on TSN, Sportsnet, back in the day on Raptors TV or NBA TV Canada, Dan Gladman definitely had a part in it. And for me, when I was just kind of getting into the industry and, you're unsure of yourself and uncomfortable and you feel like you don't fit in, he was one of those guys that put his arm around me and said, "Don't worry, buddy, you're gonna make it." And he probably didn't use those words, but he made me feel like I was at home, like a good friend does. So I'm very excited, very happy to have Dan Gladman on the podcast. We've been talking about it for a couple months and we're just waiting for a time when our schedules lined up. But before that, actually, first up, have you listened to the Heist podcast? This isn't meant to be a promo or official whatever, but I had a really long drive today to a shoot, and I had a really long drive back, and I popped in a couple of their podcasts. Stinking hilarious. These guys are amazing. They had, what got me into it was they had our buddy Mike Veerman for the Mike on Much podcast on. And so I listened to that one first. And then I'm like, oh no, I got to keep going. Heist podcast. And guys, if you're listening and you want another Canadian voice on the show, my schedule is pretty open. Give me a call. But now, I know you've been waiting for it. It's time for the Stringer Big Weekend. First up, Friday, April 13th, Rick Astley at the Opera House, 735 Queen Street East. Rick Astley, everyone. How exciting is that? I know I said I was going to give up singing on the podcast, but how can anyone be expected to resist? I'm never going to give it up. I'm never going to put it down. Never going to stop singing and desert you. Okay, that was a bad adaptation, but hey, whatever. I tried. Rick Astley's at the Opera House, and you know how you get your pretty little mitts on a set of tickets? That's right, Seat Giant. Just head on over to seatgiant.ca and simply type in Rick Astley, and voila, tickets at your fingertips. Ready for me to sweeten the deal? Oh, sure you are. Do you like it when I ask questions and not just give you information? Use promo code STRINGER for an extra discount on your tickets. And guess what? It doesn't just work when trying to get Rick Astley tickets. You can use Seat Giant for just about any event you want to attend in Toronto or anywhere else you want to explore. Go see sporting events, concerts, festivals, and receive a discount on all of it just by using promo code STRINGER. Woo! Isn't that exciting? Fun little Rick Astley story. You all know by now that I'm a massive Foo Fighters fan. And last fall, I headed down to San Bernardino, California for Cal Jam, which the Foo Fighters kind of resurrected. And Rick Astley came on stage with the Foos, and they performed just a part of Never Gonna Give You Up. And it was stinking incredible. So who knows? Go see Rick Astley at the Opera House on Friday. And perhaps Dave Grohl make a surprise appearance. Don't quote me on it, but anything can happen. Saturday, April 14th, Saturday morning, all-you-can-eat cereal cartoon party. Two of my favorite things, all-you-can-eat and cereal. Oh no, and cartoons, yes. 10 a.m. at the Royal Cinema. Curator Kier La Janice, I hope I pronounced that correctly, presents a 3-hour trip down memory lane with a tribute to eye-popping Saturday morning cartoons of yore, complete with a smorgasbord, what a good word, of delicious, sugary cereals. You'll see both faves and obscurities spanning the 40s through the 80s, all punctuated with vintage commercials and PSAs. The lineup is a secret, but the good times are guaranteed. Pretty much. I just wrote that myself. But they are, mostly. $15 for adults, $8 for children, and kids under 3 eat free. Sunday, April 15th, D&D and D. Huh? You want to have a sweet night out of role-playing games, drinks, and a delicious meal while supporting a local female-run independent theater company? Of course you do! Well, we have got a fundraiser for you. Q6 Theater presents Dungeons and Dragons and Dinner. Eat, drink, and be merry while taking part in one of 6 unique role-playing experiences happening in the same room. Talk, laugh, and fight your way into and out of hilarious and harrowing situations in a tailor-made story arc that leads you all to the end of the night when one player from each session takes part in the final encounter. All while being served a hearty and delicious meal fit for a hero. 2:30 p.m. is when it all starts at the Emmett Ray, 924 College Street. And you want more information? Of course you want more information. What else are you doing on Sunday, April 15th? Q6.ca. That's CUE number 6.ca. And I'll see you at Dungeons and Dragons and dinner. Please remember that if you have an event coming up, anything you want promoted, hit us up on Twitter at Stringer Podcast or email us podcast@thestringers. That's Stringers with a Z. Z if you're in the States.com. If you don't like our ideas, that's cool. You don't have to. You can just visit seatgiant.ca and use promo code STRINGER to save a few bucks on all of Toronto's events, whether we pump it on the podcast or not. I've done all the talking. I've actually done it twice after I screwed up the intro already. And it's time for DG on the road. Dan Gladman, I've left you waiting long enough. I'm sorry, my friend. That means there's only one thing left to do. Dylan, cue up the sax. Actually, recognize these chairs that we're sitting in. They're in your office. These are your chairs.
Straight out of my office?
Straight out of your office.
You know what the first thing I'm thinking of, though, sitting in these chairs? Have you ever seen the Zach Galifianakis Absolut Vodka advertisements?
No.
Oh my God. You have to see these. Like, it's him and these two semi-famous DJs. I feel like they're called, like, Tim and... Not Sid, but something like that. So it's the three of them, and they were asked to do an advertisement for Absolut Vodka, and they said, we'll do it, but the only thing about it is we have 100% creative control. We write it. We do what we want. And they actually let them do it. So you have this crazy 3-minute commercial of Zach in his early days, like possibly even before Between the Ferns.
Yeah.
And it is just like, it's so stupid funny, you can't even believe what you're watching. And when you watch it, you'll see what I mean about these chairs.
That it reminds you of it?
Yep.
Are you a big comedy guy?
I mean, I love laughing.
Yeah?
Should I be talking to this?
Yeah. It's a soft start. We just pick up wherever we go.
I don't really...
Zach, and I'm curious.
I mean, I love comedy. I don't know that much. I don't know who... You know, I have some favorite comics over my life like anybody, but I don't have a working knowledge of it. You know, but there was one night we went to comedy. There's a comedy store in LA. That's the one in West Hollywood. And I think like Eric Smith went on Groupon and got like, he's like, I get 6 tickets for $10 each. Want to go? And we all went, and it was just like hours of laughter. Except Dane Cook. Travis Stone despises Dane Cook. So we all sat there stone-faced when Dane Cook was on stage.
Dane performed? Dane's really good at stand-up, though. He is a real...
No? Talked about himself endlessly. And that sounds like he had gone through some shit. But,
yeah, like his brother stole his fucking money and, like...
Oh.
His brother was his manager and embezzled, like, $10 million, $12 million. And Dane basically had to restart.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's wild because you hear it with these young athletes or young singers, and they have a parent that is like, I'm going to manage you. And then part of it, I think, if I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, it's like they feel they're deserving of it.
I agree. I also think there's a second side to that, which is they think because they're the parent or whatever that, oh, I know how to do this. I know how to manage. I know how to manage my son. We don't need some stupid professional. I know how to do this. And you don't know how to be a manager. You don't.
No.
Just because your kid is good at showbiz or sports has no bearing on your abilities to manage the money or manage their career. You have no experience at it. The only reason you're even in the picture is because of the relation. Mm-hmm. So you're so much better off getting a professional experience. But then the families fear being extorted by... They don't trust someone on the outside.
Completely. And, well, I imagine it to be really tough because here's a for instance, and it's a really dumb for instance, but I think it kind of fits. I needed a new mattress, but I don't know jack shit about mattresses, and I don't want to walk in and have a sales guy sell me on something. I don't mind spending money. I'm not afraid of it, but I didn't know enough about mattresses, and my life didn't provide me the time to figure it out and learn about mattresses. And so I waited like a year and a half with a big rusty spring in my back before I finally went and figured out this is the kind of mattress I want, this is the frame I want, blah, 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 and I went and I dropped the coin. Again, that's a dumbed down version, but if you apply that, it's scary. You said just because they're kids in sports doesn't mean they know how to figure it out. But just because you're good at basketball doesn't mean you know anything about money. It doesn't mean your parents know anything about money.
Your parents definitely don't. Unless they went through it themselves.
Full disclosure, we've been rolling the whole time. It's always kind of like a really comfortable rolling start. That's the idea, is we just kind of get into conversation.
You've been rolling this whole time?
Yeah, we always, as soon as you walk in the door, we roll. Because I don't want to be the guy that's like, hello and welcome to the Stringer Podcast. My name is Clayton Hansler and I'm joined by Dan Gladman across the seat from me. Dan, how are you doing? I like your shoes.
I was wondering because you were holding the mic to your mouth. I'm like,
well, you never know what kind
this guy's
of
rolling.
Awesomeness is going to come out.
This guy's rolling.
Right?
Yeah.
Dan Gladman on the podcast. How's it going?
it's going great, man.
You get your like one day off, your one afternoon like bit of fresh air in this crazy streak, and I'm that guy that just books you for it.
Well, yeah, you saw the break in the schedule. You had this, but doing a podcast with a friend is not. I don't consider it work.
Funny text message exchange on your way over here. You're like, Clay, I hope you did your research. I sure did. And I said, Dan, I have the benefit of knowing what we're going to talk about. Which really is, we'll see.
For sure. But I mean, that doesn't intimidate me. I'm ready to talk about any topic. Although I used to go on Todd Shapiro's radio show, podcast, or whatever it is at Sirius. And he's a really good friend of mine.
How do you meet Todd?
Todd is a lot of mutual friends. Yeah. I mean, we've all kind of, I would say we're a generation older than you, maybe 10 years or so. And a lot of us kind of started at the same time when, media was a little bit more traditional than it is right now, and we came up kind of the fundamental way and start with Joe Jobs. The first time I actually heard of Todd Shapiro was when he was on was the show called Blind Date or something like that.
Was he? Oh,
I think he
really?
was on it. Yeah,
he's a naturally funny dude. Which I wonder. Actually, he seems like someone who's done the improv training. I don't know if he has or not, but he thinks so well on his feet.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. He is comedically brilliant, and it's just as a broadcaster. His ability to think on the fly, to connect with the people sitting with him. And I've been to some of his tapings, and he's just on fire, just going from person to person, keeping the conversation going, telling jokes, remembering who everybody is. I mean, he's probably dealing with 4 or 5 guests every day, 5 days a week for 100 years. It's just mind-boggling the approach that you have to take to doing that. When all's said and done with him, he's a legend in Canadian broadcasting just from the Humble and Fred show.
Weird comparison, actually, that I'd make is Rick Moranis. In Rick Moranis' early years, he was on local radio. And if you can go back and you can still find some of his radio shows, and he is just dialed in. I'd kind of, if I want to draw a parallel, and obviously, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, million other, and Bob and Doug McKenzie.
I mean, certainly in their fields, I guess they're both Canadian groundbreakers. I mean, yeah, like Bob and Doug McKenzie is an iconic Canadian showbiz comedy. What they accomplished at their time when Canada had no place in media other than for ourselves, and what they are is pioneers. And you know who I'd almost put with them is Wayne and Schuster.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Saturday night comedy show that came on. I feel like it was on right before Hockey Night in Canada.
Were you grew up a big hockey fan?
100%. I mean, my first sports memories would be for sure Hockey Night in Canada on the Saturday night, and maybe a little bit of the CHCH midweek game with Paul Hendrick hosting.
Paul Hendrick, that's right.
Which is ludicrous because we all ended up working with the guy. Yeah. But I remember him as the not the voice of the Leafs, but the host.
The host, yeah. He brought you into it.
100%. And also watching the Jays, I feel like I would have dialed into the Jays around 83, 84, but especially 85, and Fergie Oliver, Don Chevrier.
87, 88 was me. When it was like 87, 88.
87.
One of my very first memories, not just sports memories, but memories, was in the exhibition grounds and climbing the stairs with a hot dog in my hand. And here I'm a tyke. Like, I could barely see over the seat probably, but I remember being so focused on the hot dog in my hand as I climbed the stairs. I didn't even really care there was a ball game going on. I just had a hot dog that I didn't want to drop when I had to go to the top of the stadium to find our seats.
Do you remember how they used to sell Coca-Cola then at the X? It was in this like box carton. And you get these little cups.
I don't remember at all.
And so I remember going with my dad in those days in the early mid-'80s. And yeah, we'd get the hot dogs and the Cracker Jack, whatever, but we would drink Coca-Cola. And it would be in this like paper container pitcher.
Terrible.
So cheap. And these little mini cups, like a Dixie cup size. And this is how you're drinking the Coke. And you're just like, Dad, can I have some more Coke? Because there's only like 2 sips in the thing. Those early days of baseball at Exhibition Stadium are just hilarious because it was just so Bush League. Yeah. Even though it was a Major League Baseball team. And people forget, when they moved into the Dome, that place was state of the art. Yeah. Nobody had heard of a retractable roof, and McDonald's catering the thing. And the Rogers Center, the Dome, originally the Sky Dome, is still a perfectly functioning baseball stadium. Yeah. It really is. It actually has stood the test of time.
I remember playing MLB 95, and I remember always playing, every game I played always had to be at the Dome. I didn't want to play at Wrigley Field. I didn't want to play in Boston. I wanted to play at the Dome, and you could see the glass windows of the restaurant at the end. And as your batter is up, ready to swing. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever because it gave us an identity, I think, in Toronto. And the roof gave us an identity, and just the odd look of the building, everything about it. But it was neat for me being like, oh my goodness, we are in a video game. Not we are.
For sure. And you can look at sports and the role that sports have played in the growth of Toronto. I mean, when I was a kid, Toronto wasn't much of a city. Mm-hmm. It certainly didn't have a reputation outside of Canada. And in Canada, people would have told you at the time Montreal was a far superior city in terms of nightlife, food, fashion, even business and commerce and money. I mean, Montreal was so far ahead. And yeah, the Leafs were always a very local product throughout their history, especially in the decades where they were maybe the most successful team in the NHL. And then in the 80s, they're still the Leafs, but they're not as successful on the ice. And really, outside of Canada, being honest, the NHL is a niche kind of thing. But then when you're getting into baseball, and the Jays really had their first taste of success in 85. And I remember when Kansas City beat them in the American League Championship Series after coming back 3-1, beat them 4-3. And I remember, I think it was Bob Costas, and he was interviewing someone on the winning Kansas City. And he said, how does it feel? You saved your country from possibly the pennant going to Canada. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how it was thought of at the time. Toronto was a sporting outpost. And this is where I'm coming back to what you said, and I do agree with you. The Sky Dome, the Jays winning the World Series 92-93, which really opened the door to the NBA team coming, because at 92-93, the American sports world is realizing Toronto is a major market where all of us are going to make money from. There's no reason we can't be there. And, to this day right now, Toronto in North America is probably the 4th biggest market. But yeah, it's that Sky Dome going in, the Jays winning the World Series, and then the NBA team. So there you are by 95, a world apart from where you were even 6-7 years earlier.
And then you finish off before the end of the decade, you get Air Canada Centre. And that, again, state of the art.
And that's where, when the Air Canada Centre goes in, Toronto's just in a different place than where it was the previous decade. Now it's everybody in the States knows Toronto. They might not know who our prime minister is,
Right.
but they know about Toronto, and they know that is a city worth reckoning with. And now, when you're in the States now, I mean, and you've done all kinds of traveling, and you talk to Americans, and it's either, I've been to Toronto and I love it, or I've never been to Toronto. It's number one on my list.
Good. I'm glad we got here. And we got here very naturally, because I feel that to travel as much as you do, everyone knows Dan Gladman, but if you don't know him, you've been influenced by him 100%. You've been 6 years now producing Raptors games?
Actually, this is my 9th. I thought you did your research.
I told you I direct the conversation.
Oh, right.
9th.
This will be my 9th year producing the games. I spent 4 years in the truck as an assistant producer, and this is my 17th year working for the Raptors.
Jeez.
And they've only been around for 23. I've literally seen almost every game they've ever played. Put that on my tombstone.
Yeah, because it's not a resume. It's not going to go on a plaque.
No, yeah, nothing like that.
Tombstone is probably the closest.
Dan Gladman watched every game the Raptors ever played. Died.
Woo! So what's really interesting about that means your first year producing would have been the first year we were in the same office together. Because I think
2009?
I came to Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment in the 307 Lakeshore offices in 2009. So there's a neat benchmark. 41 games. Say out of 41 games, you probably do 32 trips.
It's probably 25 times, because most of the games aren't one-offs. It's usually at least a 2-game trip to really make it cost efficient for the team, for the league. But then there's the 5 gamers, the 6 gamers. So we probably disembark about 25 times. I'd say,
times,
which is a lot.
Yeah, it's got to be February, March, where you're like, okay, let's start winding her down. Let's. I want to sleep at home for more than one night.
You're right on here.
Kind of close.
February's traditionally pretty good.
Yeah.
There's the All-Star break.
Right.
People will always say to me, "Oh, you must be going to LA for All-Star," and I say, "Oh, hell no."
No.
It is the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And everybody sees the top players going there, and obviously there's tons of television, but for the great majority of the league, most of the players, most of the coaches, the beat writers, certainly the TV broadcasters and producers, it is a break. It's a week off. A lot of people go away. I hibernate in my home.
Yeah.
But then the All-Star break ends and the games just come at you fast and furious. March has been nuts. I think when March is done, we'll have done 15 games in the 31 days. And, we were out of town of the 15, probably 7 or 8 of them, or 9. Yeah. So, yes, with a handful of games left in the regular season, I'm pretty much at the point where don't put me on another airplane.
Right.
Don't put me on another bus.
Right.
If I can't walk there, I'm not going.
For everyone that says, I want to travel for my job, it takes a special kind of person to be able to open up that suitcase, fill it with just the right clothes, leave, be on the schedule you're on, because let's remember, when you're on the road, it's generally, they're telling you you're going to step out your door and you're not going to stop working until you get to step back in your door when you come home. What makes a good road person? Like what?
A good road warrior?
Good road warrior, exactly.
One thing they always talk about with the athletes is their routine. And I just have a routine. And I'm obsessive compulsive enough that it has to be met. And it starts with packing my bag before I leave. I know what clothes I want for certain scenarios. I know which days on the road I'm going to try to get to the hotel gym. And you try to have a certain place in each city where you like to go and grab your lunch before you go out. I always was fortunate enough to travel as a kid. My dad took me on some pretty amazing sports trips when I was a kid, and spoiled brat teenager, probably didn't deserve it, but he did anyway. Thanks, Dad. And then when I got to university, part of life there was going on road trips, going to concerts.
Fish concerts by chance?
You could say that. Yep.
Yeah, 1 or 2?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, it didn't start with Fish. that became the obsession. But I remember traveling to see Van Halen concerts, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, whoever were the bands at that time. And I went to Buffalo with some friends in 1992, saw the Grateful Dead at the football stadium in Buffalo, Orchard Park, New York, and as a 18-year-old, mind completely blown. Seeing 60,000 Deadheads invade this poor city, take over this football stadium, and just see that way of life exists. Yeah. So from there on, it was road trips whenever possible. I had a car that helped me get friends, and we were on the road. So it was always going to be part of who I was. And this summer will come, and there'll be road trips to see concerts still, even at my advanced age.
Here, let me pump your tires for a second. Not only would I never be able to guess your age in 100 years, you take care of yourself, Dan. Like, you have done a very good job at taking care of yourself, to where I might be a couple years younger, but I'm quite envious.
You're probably 10 years younger than me, at least. And, I mean, it's a choice.
It is a choice.
It's just a choice we make. I almost don't even know how I started to even care, because there was a time where whatever was in front of me, I would eat. If anybody wanted to go get a beer, I was the first guy to say, yeah, let's go. And to the point where now I lose friends because, really, we're going to go for beers? I had one beer last Tuesday.
I don't think I should have one. The carb levels are extremely high in beer.
You get a bit older, you start paying attention to some of these things, and you just, I don't know, it becomes part of the routine.
You just slot it in.
You did.
For me, when I get to the airport, when I find my groove, oddly enough, is during security, because I always have the exact same amount of things with me, which means I need the exact same amount of trays to put my stuff in. You got to pull out your laptop, take off your belt, remove your shoes. It is such a routine for me at that point. That's when my brain really gets into it. It's up until the airport, I'm generally on an hour's sleep and frantically running around hoping I didn't forget anything. But as soon as I go through security, I'm like, okay, I'm in my place. And because of the team I was with, we did a lot of commercial travel, which means a couple things. Thanks for the air miles. Really appreciate it. But you're like, okay, it's the booster juice, right? As soon as you get through customs, go down the elevator, there's a booster juice on your right. Then there is, do we get the terminal with the iPads at the tables? Or am I busting out a new podcast? Or is my laptop open doing a little bit of work, right? And it's all these little decisions that add up to the whole thing. For me on game day, I generally would start the day always shooting scenics, right? Which is great for me because you get out of the hotel, you have your camera with you, and you just get to walk around the city and shoot shit that looks sweet. But completely the routine you have and being able to keep that is perhaps the only thing tethering you to your sanity.
Absolutely, especially when you're doing it day by day, week by week. The team you worked with, I worked with that team as well.
You did. That's right.
I've done that commercial travel. It was very different.
The only stories I can think of you working in Major League Soccer are funny ones where I think perhaps you've been overworked by that point and you just want to get the fuck out.
I don't know if this is still the rule, but the MLS teams can have a charter once a year, right?
Only if there's no direct flights offered from where you are to there. Well, so we can't do LA. And Toronto's such a hub, which means the only one we really ever got was to Portland or to Salt Lake.
We did the Salt Lake. And the one thing with TFC in those days was they'd normally fly back the next day. Yeah. We'd get commercial flights the next day. But on this instance, they were going to fly back
that night.
So we were flying back from Salt Lake City to Toronto. And the plane they got was kind of, it wasn't this giant jet that the Raptor that I was accustomed with the Raptors. So it's a small jet. It just didn't have enough room for enough gas to get us from Salt Lake City to Toronto. So we had to land halfway in Des Moines, Iowa. I have never been to Iowa, and if anybody asks me if I've ever been to Iowa, no, I haven't been to fucking Iowa, okay?
I didn't leave
Except
the airport.
to stop over there once at 2 a.m, and then it was too late to come back to Toronto, so we landed in Hamilton. 3 a.m. And so here we are in Hamilton at 3 a.m, and there's a bus waiting for TFC, and Preki said, team only. So now, after working all day in Utah, and then flying overnight from Utah with a stopover in Iowa, here we are with our bags at the Hamilton airport at 3:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Just left. Somehow, we ended up being picked up by Brian Burke's driver. Picked us up, drove to Hamilton. We sat out there waiting for like an hour, and we got driven back to Toronto. And I think he drove us to Terminal 1 at Pearson because that's where our cars were.
Yeah.
So that was... That's the TSC travel adventure story I usually tell first.
Salt Lake City, Utah is one of the most unique cities I've ever traveled in. We're out at some great establishment. I remember they were saying last call at 11:40 because they had to close up by midnight because they couldn't serve any alcohol after 12. And there were people drinking out of pitchers as fast as they could because they wanted to order one more before last call. And we're like, oh, this is odd. Like, odd describes it perfectly.
Well, I remember being in Salt Lake City 02, 03, and we had to fill out a form to get a membership card
in order to be
allowed to buy a drink.
Now you have to order a certain amount of food. There's like a ratio if you order drinks of amount of food you have to have on the table.
Really?
So literally when we were there, we were ordering drinks and it'd be like 2 appetizers per 2 orders, and we had 6 people with us. I think it was something like that was their ratio of what counts as food. And then we get the appetizers and go hand it around the bar and meet people and make friends because we didn't want the food. We just got out of dinner. We don't need the food.
In all fairness, though, you do that in Toronto.
What, just hand out food?
Go, table to table, introducing yourself. Hi, I'm Clay. How you doing today?
How's it going? Do you want some deep fried pickles?
I'm thinking next time I'm in Salt Lake City with like Jack Armstrong, we'll have to order about 100 orders of French fries just to like get a sustainable amount of drinks.
Jack Armstrong has endeared himself into the hearts of everyone in Toronto. I'm glad, again, you brought him up.
Who's running the show here, Clay?
What is it? You're the puppet master.
I agree with where you're going with this. Jack Armstrong has built himself his brand from guy talking about the Raptors into an iconic figure in Canadian broadcasting. He truly has. And, you don't have to look any further than he's won the Canadian Screen Award for the best sports analyst the last 2 years. The last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
And I can tell you, those were the first 2 years we nominated him. Boom, he wins both times. And that's an indication of his popularity and his impact on the viewership and the listenership about the Raptors and what he brings to the table, which is a personality that the Canadian sports fan and even the Canadian media viewer just falls for. It starts with the Brooklyn accent, which to our neutral sounding voices, a Brooklyn accent is just incredible. We all fall for it. We can't help it. His fiery personality, his passion for basketball, his zest for living, and it all comes across whenever he speaks into a microphone and off for that matter. But he just has an engaging, endearing personality that has made him a rock star in Toronto and Canada.
He's a great teacher too, I think, and that's what I pick up from him. I came into basketball late, like really, really, really late. I was already working with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment when I really took on to basketball, and it caught fire quick. But he's an instructor. Everything he does is, I feel he's trying to teach you something in the end. And I think when someone can show you something, when you can take something away, then they hold that piece inside of you forever. They're like, oh, no, I'm a little bit spurter now because of what he said. And that's just the way he delivers information.
What, in the first years of him being a broadcaster in Toronto, what did everyone call him? Coach.
Yeah.
No one does that anymore. Now he's Jacko. But his background is as a coach. I don't want to screw up the details of what schools he was at, but he went to Fordham, and he was an assistant coach very young in life. I mean, I believe in his 20s, and he was the head coach at Niagara, certainly in his 30s. He was young at it. So his instincts are as a basketball coach. It's what he knows. Teaching, like you said, X's and O's, giving tips on young people how to play basketball, but also leadership. And yeah, that can't help but come out not only in his broadcasting of basketball, but in his personality day to day.
There's one thing, though, that Jack has taught us. It's not the X's and O's.
The Jimmies and Joes.
But the Jimmies and Joes. As a producer, what's the right way to tackle personalities?
I'm gonna give you two answers, and one's gonna be the serious answer, and the second is gonna be, it'll be a little bit of an appeal to humor, and I'll also get to mention one of my favorite comedians.
Amazing.
Okay. First, being straight up, you got to be you. You got to be who you are. You have to have confidence in your ability to interact with the people around you. Now, that does sound easy, and for a lot of people, probably for 100% of us, we fluctuate with that. There's some days where you feel great and you feel like a leader of men and women. And then there's other days where you feel no one's listening to me. Nobody cares what I have to say. I just got to get through this, go home and cry. Okay? And I'm saying this from experience. I've been through it. I came into a situation where I was a young, inexperienced producer, inexperienced to leadership, with a cast of characters, on-air people who were very experienced, had been doing television for 10, 20, 25 years. How do I step into my first show producing Raptors on TSN in 2009, and I'm producing Rod Black, who I've been watching on television for 20 years and have respected and admired and said to myself, man, this guy's such a good broadcaster, I can't even believe it. That's before working with him. You just have to go in and just be honest to yourself. And for me, I think that does include just trying to make people feel great about themselves and what they're doing. And, something as small as great job with that hit, or awesome broadcast as always. What's wrong with complimenting each other? It's great. And I mean, when I say it, I'm not whistling Dixie. I mean it. It comes from a very sincere place. And I know that if the Raptors make it to the NBA Finals and Matt Devlin calls the play-by-play for that game, he will be amazing at it. I know that. I just have that faith from experience, have that confidence in those people. But that does lead to the second part. I promise the second part. And we'll go to I think is one of the great TV shows of all time, The Larry Sanders Show. And the unbelievable comedian Garry Shandling. And there's a film on HBO right now. I think it's called The Zen of Garry Shandling. I have it on PVR. I haven't had a chance to watch it. But there were such amazing characters on that show. But the one that really stood out was the Rip Torn character, his producer, right? And like every word out of Rip Torn's mouth in this show is just the funniest thing you've ever heard. He'll be hypocritical of himself within 3 seconds, but everything he says is always to the betterment of the star of the show. It's almost like the producer's only... If you watch the Larry Sanders Show, you would think, wow, the producer's only show is to kiss the talent's ass. And maybe I'm being a little severe with that, but at the same time, for me, especially when they're on the air, you just want to make them feel good. You want to make them feel comfortable, and it's really important to do that, and it's really important to side with them and let people know what you think of them. Now, is that how they teach leadership and leadership 101 at Harvard? I don't know, but I guess my style and even the way I am just day to day is, look, if we're talking, I want you to feel good about yourself. I want you to know that I think the world of you, and that's what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to produce this.
I think the signs of a great leader is the person who's able to inject whatever a situation needs. And on some days or at some moments or with some groups, that is organization. On some days with some groups, that could be just absolute creative control, right? Because there's a lot of indecision going on. But with some groups, that could be simply support. That to be a great leader, you need to inject the one thing that group needs to function at the highest level. And with your group, support. And that's what you've learned. And that's what makes you a great leader. That is my hypothesis.
If you're telling the world I'm a great leader, I will thank you for that. If you took a poll of people, I don't know if they'd agree. It doesn't matter. But I know that people who operate at top efficiency, people who are already established as stars, i.e. Matt and Jack, I know that when Jack says something on live on TV that I particularly like, and I will say, I'll come on the intercom and I'll say, awesome analysis, Jack. And whether he responds to that or not, to me, isn't important, but sometimes he will say thank you. And even when you're Jack, you're the best sports analyst in Canada as chosen by your peers, it's still nice to know that someone listened to what you just said and patted you on the back for it. There's no substitute for that. It's positive reinforcement. It's why in sports, the Raptors know DeMar DeRozan can shoot a basketball from 15 feet and it goes in the net. But you know what? When he does it, it's still nice to get the high five. It's like when he does the air fives on the free throws. The dude makes 85% of his free throws. We know he can hit a free throw, but he likes giving the high five to the air as if it's one of his teammates on a technical when there's no one there. It's just part of the process. It's part of sports, and I believe it should be part of live television. We let each other know when they've done something nice.
Ooh, I like this because we're kind of getting philosophical in a way. With so much focus on criticism, it's nice to believe in a place, but then develop a place that surrounds itself in positivity and says, no. Because if you're leading a truck or if you're leading any sort of group and you say, by example, this is how we do things, right? Dylan, you're doing a great job today. I really appreciate the fact that you're here. Dan, I know you've been really busy. I really appreciate the fact that you took time out. They might not learn something on the first day, but on the third day, on the 30th day, on road trip 31 or game 41 or game 82, they're going to turn to the new Chiron person in the truck and say, hey, you know what? Thank you. I really appreciate that. I needed that help. And it just it creates this bubble of positivity when perhaps in the past the truck has been known to be a bit of a war zone.
There doesn't have to be the stress in the truck. Now, something can go wrong. And I've had my meltdowns and my freakouts, and I wish I could take them back. But the bottom line is everyone's there doing a job. We do it almost every day. Everyone's good at what they do. And yeah, you're right. You do want them there the next day. Part of having them back the next day is treating them well, treating them like human beings. And when there's certain things that happen that I don't like, and as the producer, as the quote leader in the room, and as the person in the production staff who's been doing it the longest, I do hold the right to criticize something I don't like. And, I will do it, but I try not to make a tantrum out of it, which in the heat of the moment, it slips out. But that can happen anywhere in the workplace. And the best way to do it is you pull someone aside. This happened. I think it could be better if we do this. But also when you did this, I loved it. I kind of believe these are work techniques, leadership techniques that are taught in management, or I would hope that's how they teach it in management. Because as you said, 20, 30 years ago in sports broadcast trucks, they were ridiculous, way too much stress, people not being treated properly. And it makes me wonder, probably the whole workforce was like that in those days too. I mean, we're seeing, as every day goes by, this exposure of how human beings are treated at work. Well, even if you're paying someone to be there to do a certain job, they still deserve to be treated with a certain amount of decorum and manners and courtesy that are kind of almost more important than the actual work that's being done.
You have siblings?
I have a brother and a sister.
You have a brother and a sister, and where do they fit? Older, younger? Where?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest, so am I.
Yeah. There you go.
Right on.
See?
Honestly,
why we're in media.
My goodness, it's funny. This is going to be 2 straight weeks that I've brought my mom up on the podcast, and I really hope she doesn't listen. But she's still waiting for me, I believe, to get a real job. My mom was my largest support through my teen years. She was the one who always told me that I have the ability to do anything, that it doesn't matter what it is. She's like, you'll do it and you will do well at it because you have the ability to learn and to adapt. And she's always had voice in my head. What she didn't realize is that's going to motivate her son not to be an accountant or to be a lawyer, but instead to go into the creative field and want to make film. And she was like, no, this backfired. This isn't what we wanted to do at all.
To that, I want to say that the history of show business is littered with people who were told from a young age, you can't do this. You need to be a doctor. You need to be a lawyer. There's no money in this. There's no money in journalism. I was told that, not by my parents. My parents were always very supportive, and I went to journalism school. But there were some elder family members who, I was told, don't go to journalism school. There's no jobs. Okay, because how do you know? You've studied this. You're
a failed journalist. I'm really sorry to hear that.
And it's people just find their way here. For me, as a little kid, I was watching sports. I was reading the paper voraciously. I had a pretend radio station at home by the time I was 9 years old, and I would record shows off, I don't know, 680 CFTR 680 or 1050 Chum, whatever the teeny bopper stations were at the time, and I'd voice myself on a tape recorder,
and then you play the song, because this is exactly what I do.
Right,
I just replace the DJ with my own 9-year-old voice.
And it just, when you're a kid, and I don't understand how every kid didn't see it that way, but there's a certain breed of us who saw what DJs and TV people were doing, and writers, in all fairness. Like, I loved reading the paper, I loved reading books. This is the most awesome thing ever. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to people in our industry and people we've all worked with, we all have the same. It's been the same. We were obsessed with media from the first chance you could read or see what was going on. And, the TV shows you watch when you were a little kid, and what newspaper, and these things influence how you get there. And there's no predicting who's going to get there or how. Everybody has a different path. But, the parents at this point, they can sit back and watch and enjoy what we're doing. It's just, the thing that was funny to me was your mom's waiting for you to get a real job. My mom's waiting for me to get a wife.
Oh,
so, I think she's given up.
Okay, maybe we can help each other out. I'll introduce you to a couple of my friends.
Okay.
You got to get me a real job in the truck or something like that. I would imagine, you know what?
Easy.
I bet if I came in early and slung line, and hooked up all the cameras, if I had a technical role, I bet you that would qualify as a real job. It's because having a creative role is, you can't quantify what you're doing.
The thing that you mentioned there about the technical, that stuff is real work. It's, this needs to go here in order for this to work. This needs to be done to get this on the air. Mm-hmm. The production people, someone like me, the job itself is kind of metaphysical. I really only utilize a laptop, and then I have to scramble, especially on the road, to find a printer so I can, here's a printout of what of the vision of what we're going to do tonight is. So it's hard to describe that as an actual job. But that's what a producer does, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. But it's hard to kind of explain when people ask exactly what that person does, especially in sports where you can't really reinvent the wheel. It is what it is. There's a sporting event. A news producer, and those are some of the people who I admire the most, the changing landscape day to day, almost minute by minute, and how they're altering their lineups and deciding what stories they want to tell, what stories have to get dropped, and even what stories they have enough information to safely report on. And I find the news world fascinating in that way. But The fact is, these are jobs. People on the outside just see what's on TV and they think it's wonderful, but they think that those kinds of jobs are out of reach for whatever reason. But I think it's people in our generation who have shown, and also in Toronto, it's one of the biggest industries here. In fact, media, film, production, I've been told is the second biggest industry in Ontario.
Interesting.
So it is a legit form of making a living to grow up in Ontario and think that you're going to work in media. Now, not everyone's going to be on television or produce behind the scenes of Toronto FC or host their own podcast. But these things are completely available and very doable for people in this province.
And this is what I kind of love about right now, where we're at technologically, is that it takes a little more than just a will, like to want to do it. To be honest, when we met 9 years ago, I had never touched a video camera in my life. I had done still photography in my teen years, but I hadn't touched a video camera. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just, I, in my head, had a story I wanted to tell, and they said, well, you know what, we don't know if you're going to be good at this because you've never done it before, but hey, if you want to use our stuff, you can use our stuff, which I can never repay them for, just that ability to touch, quote-unquote professional equipment, and then you just kind of figure it out from there. And as everything's gotten less expensive, or your friends buy it and you can get your hands on it easy, whether it's an audio recorder or whether it's a program to record your podcast on a computer or whether it's your iPhone to record video, I am blown away at how attainable it is for people. And yet sometimes the only thing holding them back is themselves, saying that it's out of reach, saying, oh, I just don't know where to start. And I'm like, start right there. You've got it on your lap. Just go. Just do it. You'll get one listener for sure. I listen to all sorts of shit.
I mean, everything's do it yourself now. Everything. If you have a camera, a friend, and a DeGero, you're a walking TV station.
100%.
What surprises me is that people don't even realize that they already are broadcasting. Everybody who posts anything on Facebook, I hate to break it to you.
You're a curator of content.
You're in the media.
Yeah, completely.
You make content. When you post something on your Facebook, you are broadcasting to the world. You're already a broadcaster. And like you said, the tools are all built in. Anybody can sit on their couch at home, stare at their computer, your webcam, it's probably on. You probably don't even know it's already on.
True.
So everybody who participates in even the slightest bit of social media, most of them only think of it as the social part. But you're in the media. Everyone's media right now. And for anybody who's on the way up, it's kind of, when I talk to students, young people who are trying to get into the industry, I've been telling them this for years already. Do it yourself. DIY. Yeah. Get a friend to shoot you, even on your cell phone. Do the work. And even if you don't get a job out of it or you get 50 viewers a month, who cares? You're doing it for yourself anyway.
Completely.
The whole reason, like you said, you wanted to tell stories. That's why you landed in what you're doing. Isn't that what we're all doing? We just have this urge to tell stories. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of ego involved with us. We want the public to see what we're doing, but nobody ever worried about that when Tom Hanks did a film or when Tom Brokaw did the news. People have this desire to present content and information to the world, and anybody who does have that desire can easily go and do it.
First of all, since I've opened the office, I've had the privilege of being able to work with many different outlets throughout not just Canada but the US as well. But I've done a couple really fun things with TSN, and they asked me, they're like, oh, can you help us out with one extra thing? We're in Buffalo doing a shoot for them, and they're like, can you help us out with this one extra thing? They wanted to do, like we have the two panels side by side where you have the one guy on location and
double ender.
So they want to do a double ender. We didn't have the ability because we didn't have a DeGero with us. They thought maybe we'll drive one to you. We used an iPhone 7 in order for them to do this thing that went on the air and ran all night because SportsCenter runs until like 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. But they're like, all we have to do is plug a microphone in. We have a camera that can carry 4K. It can definitely do HD. You just got to stay still, right? We propped it up. We took a tripod with actually a real heavy duty camera on it. And then we needed a flat surface, so we took a book, and then we leaned legit the iPhone up to it because they could get it immediately. And I was blown away that all it takes is someone just to be like, yes, you can. Not, oh, what are all the things in the way? Yeah, no, we can do this. And it's good enough for TSN.
For me, it goes back to the first war in Iraq, I think 1990-91. And that was the first time you saw minute-by-minute updates. Here's what's happening. I'm in the Hotel Baghdad, and we're being bombed, and I'm on the phone with CNN.
Yeah,
that is burned into my memory, and it will never go away. And, that from there, that's, to me, journalism took a fundamental change there where the journalist is part of the story and the journalist is there and you're just reporting from the moment no matter what technology is available to you. In 2005, let's say, I don't think CNN could have ever imagined that some dude in his slippers at home, they have to bring him on as an expert and he's going to talk on Skype and they're going to put it on CNN, this bastion of television professionalism and perfection, but we're going to now put a grainy Skype video on.
Yeah.
Well, the philosophy of that changed. And now people who are experts in politics, and maybe it's bleeding into sports now, and you gave the example. Sometimes you just have to go to the person who's there, and if the best technology isn't available, you go to the next best technology. Right. This all goes to Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. There's almost an urgency. It's sometimes almost better that here's Clayton Hansler on grainy video because something just broke. It's happening right now. Of course, we can't have our ace camera operator and our ace reporter there because this just broke 3 minutes ago. Yeah. So here's what we do have.
Go.
And our competition doesn't have it.
Yeah.
To me, that's changed the face of how news and sports are reported, and it's all the technology. And once again, you're in the industry and you were there, but at the same time, it could have been anybody in any situation on their iPhone, being a journalist. Now, for some reason in my mind, I'm thinking of horrible incidents. The ones coming to my mind right now is, remember there was the kid on the Dundas streetcar and he got shot by police?
I do remember that.
Now, you had a lot of people horrified on that streetcar and were scared for their life and wanted to, if there had been a person on that streetcar who thought to his or herself, I'm just going to open my iPhone now and open my video camera. Yeah. I mean, 99% of the population is going to think, that's terrible. Weren't you worried for your life? Or what are you doing? But as a journalist, my instinct is turn on your camera, see what you get.
Yeah.
And it's reality. It's happening in front of you. You have the means of production to get something out of this. And maybe by giving out that information down the road, you're helping the world because it's being recorded and maybe humanity can learn from it. And the truth is that means every single one of us out there is a journalist now, as we said before, is a member of the media. And the technology has just put that much power in all of our hands.
Dan, we have killed it. But I want to get one thing out of you, because 9 years, and then 17 of 23 with the Raptors. It's unreal. Is there one moment you can hail back to? Harken back to, be like, you know what? This moment, there's been a lot of great moments, but this moment was knowing that I was there, I was part of the broadcast, was really stinking sick.
It's hard to narrow it down, obviously. But the one...
They always say that. The super famous people always say that.
I'll narrow it down to one because it's relatively new in my memory, and it was when the Raptors won Game 7 against Miami and advanced to the East Finals against LeBron in Cleveland. And it was a crazy day because one of my best friends, my buddy Stewie, was getting married that night. Close. It was at the Berkeley Church, so it was nice and close to ACC. And I couldn't commit. Am I coming? Am I not coming? Am I going to be a
story of my life?
Right? Like I don't.
You can't.
I literally can't tell you until the day before if I'm coming to your wedding. And miraculously, the Game 7, I feel like it was scheduled at 3:30 or 5:30 instead of 8 on the Sunday, even though it was a Game 7. And so I knew I was going to be able to go to the wedding, and I knew the Raptors were going to win the game.
Yeah.
This one I knew. To me, there was no doubt going in. Game 7 at home. I don't care if they have Dwayne Wade. The Raptors ran away with the game. I feel like they won by 18. The audience inside the arena did not know what to do with themselves. It's here we are. We've won 2 rounds now, and we will now play LeBron. When I walked out of the arena to get in a cab, to get to the Berkeley Church, to get to the wedding just in time for the reception, the audience, once the audience spilled out onto Bay Street, again, like party central. It was like being back at the Grateful Dead concert in Buffalo in 1992, where people were just so enthralled, so excited with themselves, could not believe what was going on. And it was in that moment where I just, I'd already felt so honored and privileged to be involved in it. But to see the culmination of We the North. Hi, we just beat Dwayne Wade, Hall of Famer in Miami in Game 7, and now we're going to the East Finals. It was an enormous step for the basketball team. I won't go into the Neil Armstrong quote. I almost did. I held back.
I was one of those...
You sure were.
Drunk idiots pouring out on the Bay Street.
Yeah, your DeRozan jacket on.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, you know my DeRozan jacket well.
I do.
I was. That was...
The All-Star jacket. Good purchase.
It was a great...
I was envious when I saw you in that. I'm like, well,
how did I not get one?
How did I not...
Next time.
How did I not get... Next time the All-Star game's in Toronto.
Next time there's an All-Star. There's got to be another one. DeMar needs 5. Like, he has 4. He needs 5. You can't just round... You just can't end up at 4. NBA playoffs are starting. I'm stupid excited this year, and I hope you're stupid excited. I wish so badly. The one thing I have never gotten, and I don't think I'll ever get, is I want you to come sit with me during a game, and we can just watch.
Not happening.
It's not going to happen at all. You've got the coolest
seat. How about a TFC game? We could do that.
Yeah, you want to do it?
But then at a TFC game, I still need someone to explain to me what's going on. And
I'm not that guy. Honestly,
we'll just go to the beer tent then.
We'll just go to the beer tent. We'll hang out there. I've said ever since I think the day I met Dave Leader, someone we've both worked with, you still work with, I've always said that I learned that I am not a sports guy. Dave is a sports guy.
Yes.
He can tell you, he recalls so much information that he bumps into in passing that he makes me realize that no, I'm a story guy. That's what a sports guy looks like. So I can't tell you what happens at a TFC game.
I believe Dave has a photographic memory. Him and Matt Devlin. I think they both have photographic memories. I can never get anything by either of them. Anything I tell them, they both already know. Like, Dave is so on it. He already knows every sports tidbit before I even get near it, and he remembers it too.
That's it. We're having a trivia night. It's going to be Devlin, Team 1. It's going to be Leader, Team 2. And it's going to be Dylan, Team 3. It's going to be a show-off because I'm dying to see who wins this one. Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking like your one day off in 3 months and coming and hanging out. I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but we're definitely planning this trip to Salt Lake City, Utah. And when you get a longer stretch in the summer, maybe you're going to come back? Maybe we can talk again.
I'd love to. Part 2.
We wrap up every single podcast the exact same way. Hopefully you can help us with it. It's kind of in line with the way you control your truck. I think it's very important for people not just to be good to those around them, but also be good to themselves, because I think that kind of helps the whole, the whole changing of the culture right now into hopefully a more positive one. So we finish off. I say a line. And then the last line is, and eat your vegetables. So you think you can help us with that? I have to say, you'll say, and eat your vegetables. Diet.
So you're going to say something, and I'm going to say, and eat your vegetables.
Yeah. Exactly. We got it? So everyone, Dan, thank you. From Dylan, thank you. Luca, who's on this editing, thank you, Luca. Please, please, please be good to yourself.
And eat your vegetables.
See